Hi everyone, Armoured Pants here, and I have another tank for you in the German line, complete guide to the Tier 10 Heavy, the 7201K, which is a tank which was introduced after 5.5 into the German line, and it is so therefore a relatively new tank to Blitz. If you want to send any replays or anything like that, a good way to contact me is via Facebook at World of Tank Blitz Gameplay, and I usually reply within a few minutes if I'm online. So this tank is a super heavy tank. It is an armoured monster. Following on from the tier 9 before that, it has a massive gun, 150mm gun, can do lots of damage. The gun is great fun as well. You can get some massive alpha rolls in it, which you will see in the gameplay. It has a long reload though. It has almost 16 seconds, 15.78 seconds. It's long. Therefore you need to make your shots count, and that's extremely important because a long time to reload. It can seem like a lifetime if you're in a brawl. Now, another key point about this tank is with this gun, it has low muzzle velocity. So even when you use Supercharge and Refined Gun as we recommend, it's still less than 1,000 meters per second. That means if you're firing over a distance, your shells are going to be traveling at a much slower speed. Therefore, you need to understand deflection shooting. Now, I hope that as you're playing Tier 10 and you're subscriber to the channel, you know what deflection shooting is. If not, or if you've forgotten or want to recap, it's in the Heavy Tank Guide, and it's also in the Tank Destroyer Guide that we have on channel. Basically, it's a technique of firing in front of a target. It was developed by World War I pilots. And you fire in front of the target and the target moves into it. Of course, the lower the muzzle velocity, the slower the shell travels, the more difficult it is, because you have to allow and aim a little bit further ahead. So therefore, what I'd recommend with this tank is, because of this low muzzle velocity, go into a training room, practice firing over long distances with it, because the muzzle velocity is significantly lower than many other tier 10s. So please do so. And then once you are able to judge this muzzle velocity better, you'll be able to hit more with those shells. Now, on looking at the armor, this has great frontal armor. Its relative armor numbers are excellent. I mean, look at those numbers. They are phenomenal. You are going to bounce shots all day long in this tank. It is a front-on monster, a front-on bully boy. It is very difficult to pen, even by the biggest guns in the game. It is difficult to pen front on. It is a side-scraping monster too, side-scraping beast. You can bounce shots all day long and side-scrape to your heart's content in this. I also hope that you know how to side-scrape, especially as you've gotten here from the tank before, which you need to know how to side-scrape with. But if you don't, or you haven't played it for a while and want to recap, please then look at the Heavy Tank Guide on channel, where we have a very simple guide to side scraping. Now, side scraping is an essential skill for heavy tanks. You don't always have to use it. So, for example, you'll see in the IS-7 guide that we have on channel, I don't bother side scraping in a couple of games and that, because I play it more like a medium because it's so fast. You don't have that option in this tank. Firstly, because it's quite slow, it's cumbersome. Not as slow as people think, but it is pretty slow and heavy. It's not like an IS-7. And also the fact that it has a rear mounted turret means that you have to side scrape. You cannot come out side on, because firstly, you're not maneuvering enough to get back into cover, and secondly, you have to expose your side for a long time before you can get your shot off. Therefore, you need to know how to side scrape. Do not play this tank if you don't know how to side scrape. And if you are out of practice side scraping, playing medium lights for a while, then please practice again and maybe look at the Heavy Tank Guide and the KV1 guide that we have on channel, where there is complete guide, simple step-by-step guide to side scraping. Now, as you can see, looking at the frontal armor, as I said, front on bully boy. Historically, this tank never existed. It was developed to blueprint stage by the Krupp company during World War II to be a super heavy tank, one of the projects that ran parallel to the Mouse project, but it never saw the light of day and never existed any further than the blueprints. Now, we're going to have a look at two games. The first game is Supremacy on Faust. Now, what I do here is, after checking the setup, I decide not to go to cap B, but to push on past B, because I want to get to this ledge here on the right hand side of the map to secure a firing point. Now, if you've seen a few of the videos I post, particularly when I get mastery games on Faust in heavy tanks or tank destroyers, I go to this firing point here, especially if I have a tank with armor that can bounce shots. Because once you get into this position, you can dominate this left flank. Now you can see here that this Conqueror was also going for that position. I smash one into him, push on, he gets one into me, but I get a bounce. And I am now a front on bully. This Conqueror will not be able to secure this position because he cannot come push onto me. He will lose. But I can push onto him. As you see, I get that bounce. I'm confident in the armor I have. I'm going to pull back, saw the WZ coming up behind him, and we have cleared him. And I have now gained this dominant position on this map, this firing position. And with the third armor that I have and the frontal armor that I have, I can wreak havoc from here. I can also absorb a lot of shots that would otherwise go and hit my allies. So therefore I can, if we look at the game philosophy that we've spoken about a lot, where if you bounce a shot, not only, now watch this shot coming up here by the way, switching up to HE, bam, look at that alpha roll. That is what you can do with this gun. When you are setting up this tank, make sure you have HE loaded, because you can get alpha rolls like that. 1200 alpha roll, beautiful stuff. And that's what this tank can do. As I said, it is an armored monster. It has, of course, its disadvantages and its drawbacks, but you just saw there one of its amazing features. Now again, HE for the bat chap, mini bat chap, and again massive alpha roll on him, and that's what you can do with this tank. And that's why I wanted to get to this firing position here. This is one of my favorite positions on this map when I have a heavy tank or a tank destroyer, in particular if you have something with armor, because you're going to see a lot of bounces coming up here. Now going back to what we were discussing on bounces, the game philosophy that we've discussed quite often on channel is that if you bounce a shot, it is often as important or equally important, or sometimes even more important. And you can see the bounce there from the armor that we have in this tank, another bounce. Because that shot, not only is it not doing damage to you, but it's also a shot that could have done damage to your allies. So you're actually keeping up, you're maximizing the total hit point pool of your team. And that's something, if on the game philosophy we looked at, where you've got two hit point pools on either team, and when one gets to 0, the other team loses, right? So therefore, if you're bouncing shots, you're conserving that total hit point pool. And that's what I was doing there. I absorbed a lot of shots. I took a bit of damage, of course, which you're always going to do, but it was calculated. And I was also a focus of fire for their team and stopped them getting significant damage on us. Now, bounced that shot off the E100, thought it might go through, it didn't. Took one from him, but now we're in a 3v3 situation, but I want to go and support the M103 because I want to clear that E100. So I'm going to push down here, and I am, I've got enough hit points to take one shot from, so I'm just going to clear him. I don't really mind taking the shot, I just want to clear him because I know that we are going to win on points, and I just want to see if I can get some more damage. I wanted to break the 5k mark, so happy to take the hit from him. And there we go, over 5k of damage, first class mastery badge. And you saw there the advantages of that tank, massive carry from me as well. You saw there 4 times the damage of the next tank to me. You saw there the advantage of this tank and how to play this tank. Push on, be aggressive, get into a good position where you can anchor your team, and then of course you can absorb shots. And I took a lot of hits there that could have done damage to my team. Maybe you lost us the game, but because I bounced them, I did a great job for my team and we won the game, and I was able to do a massive amount of damage there. I also got the Confederate badge, which shows that you're really doing a good job for your team, steel wall badge, and sniper tanker. So really all round perfect and solid heavy tank play for me. In this map, again, looking at the setup, May and Runes, A is usually where heavy tanks go, and you go there to anchor your team and also to engage with the enemy heavies and TDs. Hold them in that position, more or less like a mobile castle. Hold the enemy, anchor them in position, and allow your team to maneuver around the map. That's basically the heavy tank's role in this, and this is a classic heavy tank and should play the classic heavy tank role. Again, if you want to get a recap on that, please look at the heavy tank guide we have on channel, because it discusses the role of the heavy tank and how to play a heavy tank and what you should be doing, the key tasks you should be doing to secure wins for your team. Now here I am going to side scrape, getting into side scraping position here. Now in case you're wondering why have I loaded up heat, well, because I feel that in this position here on this map you are going to engage heavily armored tanks front on. So that's why I decided to load up heat. I am happy to take a smaller alpha roll for guaranteed pen and less time on target. Again, you see bounce because I'm side scraping. It's almost impossible to pen me when I'm side scraping like that, even when you got a big gun like the 704. Now I know that he's backed off. We know that there's nobody sitting behind in a sniping position, so we can go and cap A safely. So good, solid, heavy tank play. And that's what this tank allows you to do. It allows you to play the classic heavy tank role. That's what you should be doing in this tank. Not really suitable like an IS-7 to go off and support your meds or lights. But in terms of a classic, what a heavy tank should be doing, this tank can deliver every time. Now, of course, it has limitations because you are going to fight in a small corner of the map because you're not so mobile. Therefore, if you have your team around you doing what they should be doing and doing their jobs, then you can be very successful. If your team are not doing their jobs, because you can't really get around and influence the whole of the map, you can only play in one small pocket of the map, and your ability to influence the game in that respect is somewhat limited. I'm not really sure what position that IS-4 there was adopting. He actually caught me by surprise, having his back to me and with his gun facing me. I actually thought it would be the other way around. Either he would have his gun facing away or he'd have his front onto me in the front of me, so it took me by surprise there. That's why I sustained that first piece of damage. Nonetheless, cleared off the IS-4. Now we're down to a 4v3 situation. We're going to lose our Type 61 here though. I'm not really sure what he was doing. He should have tried to get around. He's far more mobile than the E75, yet he's sitting there front on. Again, as we've discussed before, if you're in a tank like that with virtually no armor, you do not want to be in front of a heavy tank like an E75, or indeed any heavy tank or TD. Your job is to get to the sides and to the back of them, and if you're in front of them, you're doing something wrong. Now we're in a 2v1 situation. However, now it comes down to what I was talking about before. I can't get down to C to support him in time, and he's going to be up against a medium tank, the Patton. So I tell him I'm going to B, hoping that he can hold on or get into cover while I cap B, because if I drive down there he's going to be dead anyway, and we're going to be down on bases. So that's because you can see the score, they're ahead on points. That's why I needed to cap B. Now I'm going to come to help him. If I had gone to help him, I thought he actually did very well, the E75. You can see he's got the Patton down to one shot. He actually did really well, better than I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to die there, and that's why I wanted to cap, because I couldn't get to him in time. As it happens, if I'd gone to him, I probably would have been able to save him because he's going to die now. But you know, you can't know that in the future, and you have to play sort of in solid, you have to play by the percentages. That shot and the AG round seemed to go through the turret and the hull, that space there. Take one from him, but I'm not bothered. He can't get around behind me because of that hill, and I just clear him off. So 3 kills, 2 bases capped, a lot of XP from me, much more than I actually did in the game where I did over 5k damage, and you can see that that delivers mastery badge, almost 4k of damage, but almost 1.3k of XP, which delivers the mastery badge. Bit of a carry from me and the E75. He played really well. He did particularly well at the end against the Patton. and give the M46 Patton as well a worthy opponent, because he played really well too, and just came a bit unstuck at the end. Just to have a look here at the efficiency, we can see 4 tanks damaged by me, so an average of 1,000 per tank, which is not a bad return when you're in a heavy tank. But you can see there, you saw the strengths of the tank going to secure that position that a heavy tank should do, anchoring the enemy down, and you saw the limitations of the tank too, not being able to get from one side of the map quickly. For example, if you're in an IS-7, I would have rushed to help the E-75 because I could have gotten there in time. But you have to, of course, you have to play by the percentages and to the strengths and weaknesses of your tank. And in the end, we won and delivered a mastery badge for me, and a bit of a carry from me, and a great job by the E-75 too as well. And a salute to the Patton, who had a good game. So there we are, some games showing the key strengths and weaknesses of the tank. Let's have a recap. So this is a super German heavy. Frontal armor is super, it's fantastic, and you are a front-on bully boy. The 150mm gun is a DPM Monster. You saw there just the alpha rolls you can get if you can load up your HE as well. You saw some of the massive alpha rolls that can be delivered. It's not fast, but it's not as slow as people think. And the Patton at the end found that out. It's a frontline monster, it's a bully boy. That frontal armor is scary and very, very difficult to pen. You need to use Supercharge Refined Gun on this, because it still has less than 1,000 meters per second muzzle velocity, even with Supercharge. Without Supercharge, it is almost impossible to guarantee long range shots. Use the enhanced armor, get those bounces up, because it is an armored monster. Side scraper, you need this skill to play this tank. And as I said, if you're not up to speed on that, practice again, and maybe do a recap on the heavy tank guide we have on channel. Engine accelerator is an option on this, but it's not required. It doesn't make that much difference. Load up in HE though, you need that for your lights. You saw there Type 61 backshots, Leopards, they're all vulnerable. You saw the AMX as well, that was vulnerable. It's a rear mounted tank, so it's a different game style, but of course the tank before it is also rear mounted, so if you're playing that directly from that, you have those skills. But of course that means that you need to side scrape it. Side scraping is essential in this tank. You cannot play this tank without side scraping, for the reasons that we discussed already. Therefore, please look at the heavy tank guide if you need a recap. Absorb shells for your team, that's one of your jobs. Think about the game philosophy we've discussed before, where when you take a shot and bounce it, it's as important as inflicting damage. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful. Cheers Mush, and I guess all remains for me to say is pants off.